episode of Getting Hammered. I'm your host, Mary Catherine Ham. I'm here with my co-host, Vic Mattis. We are your morning show. For any hour, we got a bunch going on. The ceasefire has been broken. I'm sure you'll be surprised by whom when we get to that later. There's a lot of, unfortunately, anti-Semitism news that we need to get to in America. But we got some other stuff for you as well. It's a little sunnier, including an Uncancelled segment about a young fan at a Kansas City Chiefs game. So we'll get to that later. Oh, and Elon Musk is popping off. Popping off, y'all. Before that, how's it going, Vic?
Hello, Mary Catherine. I'm doing fine, hanging in there, as you know, with my back injury, which I'm now beginning to wonder if it's called chronic back injury. And I hate to use the word chronic, but the older you get, which means like there's no end. Yeah. So I'm not sure. Every morning it's like, how is it going to be when I stand up? And so it's just, I have to move gingerly.
How many weeks are we out from
I feel like
the
it's
incident?
3. I feel like it's almost like 3-4 weeks. But
okay, I think that's a reasonable time. I feel like 3 or 4 weeks was where Steve was feeling slightly better.
Full disclosure, I did some weightlifting yesterday, so,
okay.
I've asked for it.
Yeah.
Again, as my dad says, you'll be fine as long as you don't do anything stupid. I'm like, come on, let's, Okay. Other than that,
gains.
I'll tell you what gains. Gaining in weight, because as you know, I'm obsessed with, not wanting to waste food, because I really do believe it's a sin. And of course, after Thanksgiving, we had this leftover turkey.
Oh, you
finished
just
that.
Keep eating.
But I do want to point out, and there's some like leftover birthday cake from my daughter's birthday, just little bits at a time.
Right.
But I do want to say my single greatest achievement is because my father was visiting here, as you know, and now he's back up in Jersey. We get him stuff to anticipate things that he might need,
right?
Including a carton of Lactaid milk because he's lactose intolerant now. Never got to it.
Huh.
But I'd hate to see it go. So within 2 weeks,
you're going to take the
in 2 weeks' time, I finished the Lactaid carton.
Okay.
And if anyone's wondering, it's interesting. It's sort of like there's a milkshake element to it.
I mean, isn't it like, how long would it keep? Because
it was like,
what's in there?
It was good till December.
What's in there?
Yeah, it was good till December, and as you know, we're not quite there yet. Okay. So I got through the Lactaid.
Well, congratulations to you.
It's not bad.
I feel like it's very sweet. Doesn't it taste sweet?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. To me, it feels like drinking.
Have you ever had?
Like the fake Coffee Mate creamer.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like drinking.
Yeah, there's some of that too. I don't know why I've been drinking the
but...
Coffee Mate creamer as well. I just been sort of straight.
That definitely doesn't go bad. I don't think you need to worry about that.
No, I ate that room temperature for months. Mary Catherine, how are you?
I'm doing all right. We had fun at my house yesterday. I find that whenever my husband leaves town, immediately at least one child does something crazy. Like it just
intentionally.
No,
or
I just think it just happens that way.
Mm-hmm.
But then not super crazy, but something weird goes.
Right.
Like someone will get weird sick, or someone will do something weird as soon as he's gone. So yesterday morning, my room is next to the baby's room. The 2 babies are in there together in two cribs, and they sleep well in there together.
You have so many kids so close together that you actually have 2. They're not twins, but there's 2 cribs in the room.
There's 2 cribs in that room. Yes, and they do well in there. And in the morning they wake up and they usually chat with each other, sort of, and they'll fuss a little bit, but then they'll fall back asleep.
Okay.
And as you know, my parenting philosophy is that it's richer and better for them and for you if you ignore them for 20-30 minutes at a time.
It's true, particularly in the morning.
Yes. So they often will fall back asleep, or they just hang out in their cribs, and they know that that's what they can do.
I have a quick question. Are both of them or just one of them able to pull themselves up?
They can both stand now, but they have not attempted to escape.
So they can stand at each. Have you ever walked in and they're like the 2 of them are standing talking to each other?
They're not across from the room from each other. They're on the same wall,
okay.
But they can kind of peek out and chat with each other. So
that's so adorable.
Yeah, because there's a dresser between them. So
I hope I don't know. They probably will not remember this stuff, but it's so adorable.
It's very sweet. Yeah. So this week, as soon as Steve leaves, that morning, I do hear like more crying than I normally hear from the toddler, who is a little over 2 now. And I'm like, what is she mad about? She seems mad. But I left her for a little while because we always leave them for a little while in there. And I didn't check the camera because I don't check the camera that frequently.
We never had
camera. And then a little while later, after Mom's relaxing cup of coffee by herself, I go in and there's still fussing going on. And I go in. She has taken her sleep sack off and she has she's standing.
Oh.
And she has wedged her leg through the crib slats in such a way that she cannot pull it back through. She's gone too far. And that was what was bothering her, at which point I said, well, I feel kind of bad about that. I am sorry. But first, let me take a picture of you so I can send this to you, to your dad. But here's the thing. I got 4 kids, so I know how to deal with this. Here's how you deal with this. I said, sweetie, I'm going to be right back. And I ran downstairs and I got a giant carton of coconut oil.
I was going to make a joke, but I didn't think it was real.
Nope.
You actually
You have to grease
butter,
the baby.
Grease the baby.
You got to grease the baby. So I bring it into there. And she's, of course, super mad that I left the room again. And I'm like, okay, this time I'm not leaving you. I'm coming back. Come back with a carton, scoop out some coconut oil, and she comes right out of there. Wow. Yeah. That's how you do it. So if you guys have that issue, I've done it with two of my children have become entangled with the crib slats.
When I was 3, I got my head stuck.
And there was no hope for that crib.
Yeah, coconut oil was not going to help that situation.
The crib was destroyed.
Yeah, it was actually, we were at a neighbor's, so it wasn't, this is worse. It wasn't a crib. It was like the wrought iron.
Oh, no.
And my sister, who's 3 years older than me, she's like, look, she was showing me what she could do. But of course, my head's larger, even though I'm younger. And I went in, and then the ears. Couldn't get out, panic ensued, and they had to use like crowbars to stretch it out. That's a little embarrassing. It was like my dad's boss.
That is embarrassing. That's a sitcom plot right there.
It's embarrassing.
Your kids. Okay. But in sitcoms, they were always having dinner with their bosses at their bosses' houses.
Yes, dinner at the boss's house.
So apparently that was your life. I don't remember ever having family dinner over at my dad's boss's house or his boss coming to our house. I don't remember that being a thing. I'm glad it's not a thing now. We'd have you over, Vic, but...
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Don't stick your head through the crib slats.
That...
I need those cribs.
Not happening.
I need those cribs. Okay, so that's what's going on. Everyone was fine.
Good.
She was no worse for the wear. Running around like crazy. She's
slathered.
A-okay.
Slathered and
running
around.
A little greasier than she was before. Now she also because it gets everywhere. So
she tans well now.
It's all in her hair.
Yeah.
Her hair's just member of Fallout Boy is what she looks like now, like Pete Wentz or something.
Boy, yeah.
Okay. Well, who's Pete Wentz from? Is he from Fallout? No.
No.
Anyway, has the greasy bangs. Greasy bangs. Anyway, okay. Let's do the news, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. Unfortunately, we have to talk about a bunch of anti-Semitism. Before we start that, I should say the ceasefire has been broken by Hamas in a major way. Some Hamas terrorists shot up a bus stop
in
Jerusalem. They have claimed responsibility for it, so this is not a guess. And 3 have died and 6 are wounded at this point.
But the ceasefire begins now.
Well, yes.
Okay.
I know you'll be shocked to find this, but I did a Google search on ceasefire broken.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of news on that front.
Well, I don't think you'd want to put it that way.
In fact, what there is a lot of news about how truces can be fragile.
Oh, nuance.
Yeah, no, the New York Times headline, past Israel-Hamas ceasefires have proved fragile. Now, this came before this very definitive breaking of the ceasefire, but I know this will surprise you as well. She runs through the reporter runs through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ceasefires over the years, all but one broken by the Hamas side of the equation. And I'd have to research that one that's not Hamas first and figure out what's going on there, because this is the New York Times.
Again,
what makes them fragile, guys? Shooting people at bus stops, that does make them fragile.
But don't forget, if Israel were to retaliate, that would be continuing the cycle of violence.
Frowned upon.
No, there's only one way the cycle of violence ends. Just let them kill you.
Well, and this is the problem with calls for ceasefire, is that's what that looks like in real life. Mm-hmm. That's what a ceasefire looks like in real life, because one side believes, and its supporters in this country believe, that it is entitled to do anything by any means necessary to resist, and that includes killing civilians at a bus stop. and it includes breaking ceasefires and fully expecting that the other side hold the ceasefire.
I think they should just be more open about it and just say we demand Israel.
Yeah, just don't
ceasefire,
defend
a
yourself.
one-sided ceasefire.
Yeah, that's what they want. Okay, but in better news on this front, there are still some hostages coming back, and that ceasefire is gaining freedom for some Israeli citizens in that sense, and so that continues to go. I think there's 7 exchanges that have happened now. A 21-year-old woman came back today who was taken from the music festival. She's one who appeared in a Hamas video at some point, injured,
yes,
and very clearly scared. And so good news on that front. Senator Chuck Schumer gave a speech on the floor about anti-Semitism. This is the New York Times reporting again. Senator Chuck Schumer, Democrat of New York and the majority leader, on Wednesday warned that some liberals and young people were, quote, unknowingly aiding and abetting anti-Semitism in the name of social justice, fueling a dangerous rise in bigotry against Jews amid Israel's war against Hamas. Credit where it's due. That's the lead. That is the lead for that. They didn't bury it.
No, it was a 40-minute speech.
Yeah, 40-minute speech. He names a bunch of examples. After October 7th, when boycotts were organized against Jewish businesses in Philadelphia that have nothing to do with Israel, that's anti-Semitism. After October 7th, when swastikas appeared on a Jewish deli on the Upper East Side, that is anti-Semitism. After October 7th, when protesters in California shouted at Jewish Americans, Hitler should have smashed you, that is anti-Semitism. We'll play a little bit of audio of Schumer.
After October 7th, Jewish Americans are feeling singled out, targeted, and isolated. In many ways, we feel alone. The solidarity that Jewish Americans initially received from many of our fellow citizens was quickly drowned out by other voices, while the dead bodies of Jewish Israelis were still warm, while hundreds of Jewish Israelis were being carried as hostages back to Hamas tunnels under Gaza.
He is the highest ranking American Jew in public office.
Right.
And I am sure that the last thing he wanted to actually do was have to get crosswise with some people in his own caucus, because Republicans, for once, don't have an issue with this.
Right.
Republicans, by and large, are pro-Israel. I'm sure you can find a few exceptions here and there.
Well, and what our friends on the left would say is, hey, you remember those 6 people who stood on a corner in Florida with masks on that are neo-Nazis? Those guys are bad.
Yeah.
Condemned by many Republicans because the press asks them to condemn them, even though they're not very obviously part of any coalition at all.
No.
They're not asked to condemn these things, which is why Schumer's bringing it to the forefront.
Right. And it's a serious problem on his side, but I don't see a fix to this. I just see a deepening rift within the Democrats because it's a very large contingent. And part of it is generational. I'm not saying that all young people believe one thing and all old people believe another thing. And certainly when you look at the polls in general, a majority of people, young and old, support Israel. They blame Hamas. Although even if you were to say it's 70% pro-Israel, the idea that, 30% of people think Hamas is in the right, I think that's a problem. I don't mean to say blame Israel. I meant blame Hamas. I might have gotten mixed up. But the point is, within that caucus, you have the older Democrats, many of whom lost races and got primaried out in the past, who are pro-Israel. They still believe that Israel is our best ally in the region, the only democracy in the region. And then you have this younger generation, a newer generation in office who believes, like all these other, rising young stars who have now been inculcated in this, that Israel is the occupier, it's the colonizer, it's an apartheid state, and they just throw this out very easily. And of course, the chant from the river to the sea, and Schumer talks about that.
Well, and he also notes, as he should, and by the way, credit where it's due as well, because it is hard to go after your own side and people who are doing things you find detestable, who are aligned with you on other things. That is an uncomfortable thing to do. And but he's doing it, and he's making note of the fact that one of the reasons he's doing it is because the Jewish community is deeply hurt and feels betrayed because they have considered themselves allies to oppressed and marginalized communities, and then are not given any leeway for being a highly historically marginalized community themselves. But the good news is that I'm sure a lot of young people are learning at college really smart things that would deter them from this kind of thinking.
At the very least, you can sleep well at night knowing that.
Because the colleges are educating them.
They're in good hands when you pay $60,000, $70,000 a year. They're in good hands.
You know, it turns out that's not true, Vic.
Oh.
The U.S. Department of Education is opening an investigation into Harvard University. It's one of the elite ones, over claims of anti-Semitism on campus, according to the federal agency's website. The department, which announced earlier this month a separate investigation into half dozen U.S. colleges and universities and a local school district for alleged anti-Semitic and Islamophobic incidents, opened the investigation to Harvard on Tuesday. It stems from a complaint that alleged the Ivy League school discriminated against Jewish and Israeli students when it failed to respond to alleged incidents of harassment last month, according to a letter from the department seen by the Boston Globe. First of all, good. I'm glad they're looking into this. The problem with all of this is that these things are selectively enforced, and it turns out that anti-Semitism on campus is not nearly the micro or macro aggression, even when you get to assault and intimidation and threats of violence that say like misgendering someone is. Turns out that that's not as enforced by college administration.
It's a much more serious crime to get the pronoun wrong.
Oh, it's very, very serious. So they're looking into this. And again, of course, they should, because here's the thing. People's speech is endangered by letting these things go unpunished.
Right.
If you let those things go unpunished on one side, it means, of course, people who are pro-Israel are going to feel uncomfortable speaking out.
That's right. I do want to point out the DOJ and Civil Rights Office Division. They want to stress they're not pointing any fingers and saying anybody's guilty here. They're just investigating because, a complaint was filed by the Jews.
Right.
Well, and this has to do with the die-in protest at Harvard.
Yes.
And the Jewish student who was trying to record it and was walking past them carefully.
Right.
And then he's the one who gets assaulted.
Yeah.
And they try to take his phone away.
And the idiots he was filming claimed when they put up video of him peacefully walking through that should justify their attacks on him, their physical attacks on him.
Yes, how dare you? I'm at a public protest. How dare you try to record me in public? Let me wear the keffiyeh to hide my face.
It's really wild how dumb these smart people are.
But also administrators, because an administrator was complaining. It was either at Harvard or at another university. You would think that he would come to the side of people feeling that unsafe and attacked, and instead said that this whole idea of recording people at these rallies is doxing.
Nope.
Doxing.
Nope. Also out in Berkeley, just so we're covering both coasts, Jewish groups are suing the University of California system, UC Berkeley, and its leaders over what they call a long-standing unchecked spread of anti-Semitism. The 36-page lawsuit filed Tuesday by the Brandeis Center and Jewish Americans for Fairness in Education argues that Berkeley and its law school's inaction on discrimination against Jewish students has led to a spread of anti-Semitism and violence and harassment against them. Demonstrations and incidents on campus following the October 7th Hamas attacks on Israel serve as examples of discrimination, according to the complaint. I mean, good. Sue people. I used to be a very not litigious person.
Sure.
In theory, but I'm beginning to understand that the way to make these universities listen is to make them listen in court.
Yeah. And there's one bit of good news, which is in Columbia Law School. The dean, Gillian Lester, has announced she is resigning. Now, she claims
as reported in the Beacon?
As reported in the Beacon. This had been in the works, she says, for a long time, but
I just wanted to spend more time with my family.
It's happening, and she's being replaced by a fellow, David Scheiser, who is actually very pro-Israel.
Okay.
So, a bit of good news.
To temper that with some really bad news, let me give you this one. This is just this morning. I saw this. Brown University President Christina Paxson was giving a speech to condemn, of course, all forms of discrimination, because you can't just stick with the prevalent one that's happening right now on your campus. Brown University President Christina Paxson planned to say, quote, every student, faculty, and staff member should be able to proudly wear a Star of David or don a keffiyeh on the Brown campus, or to cover their head with a hijab or yarmulke. After pro-Palestinian protesters heckled her, she cut references only to the Star of David and a yarmulke.
Oh, come on.
That is such stunning cowardice. Just like these are words. Your words aren't violence. I know they think words are violence. Your words aren't violence. When you say the Star of David and a yarmulke and you extend to your Jewish students the idea that they might be protected when they wear those things, that's not violence. That's don't worry. I know the pro-Palestinian students are telling you that's violence and you're dehumanizing everyone by just mentioning the Star of David. You're not. Be a grown-up. Stand up to these, albeit adults, young adults who act like babies.
Well,
they can't do it. Pathetic. Pathetic.
Yeah. Part of it you wonder is how much they agree, but a good part of it is cowardice.
They're scared.
Administrators are scared. And we saw this. I don't know if you wanted to get into this next about Hillcrest. The school in Queens, a high school in Queens.
Yeah. An investigation is underway in Queens where students at Hillcrest High School stormed the hallways in protest after learning a Jewish teacher attended a pro-Israel rally. The chaos last Monday was all caught on camera. It lasted for hours as the terrified teacher hid in a locked closet. School's Chancellor David Banks said Monday that education is about character and that he wanted to listen. He wants to listen. Not punish anyone. He wants to listen, Vic, to both students and staff and both the Jewish community and the Muslim community. He said building trust with students is a priority, but he said discipline will be swift and fair after 400 students in Jamaica, Queens rioted inside the school. By the way, for perspective, the New York Times called this a protest. I don't think it was a protest.
So as of now, I believe, following this affair at Hillcrest, one student has been charged.
Well.
With
that'll do it.
With aggravated harassment. I mean, they ripped out the water fountain in the hall. And not only that, but Banks, the chancellor, actually went out of his way to say that these other outsiders who are saying that students have been radicalized, very irresponsible. They shouldn't say it, and it's totally wrong.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Because okay, let's just imagine. Put on our thinking caps here and imagine that being, say, an anti-mask quote protest.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say during the late stages of COVID, when schools were open in New York and some kids objected to wearing masks. If this is what it became, would it be called a protest? I don't think so.
No, they call it the national.
Would those students be unpunished?
Right.
I don't think so. And this is the thing. This gets worse and worse the less you punish the students who are very obviously on tape guilty of doing things that at least break the school rules, if not actual laws.
I know that we've had walkouts in the past. You can go back to the 60s with the walkouts, right? And the sit-ins. But I feel like this really started to happen after the summer of 2020, right? After George Floyd.
Right.
Because suddenly you had these walkouts by students, and they weren't being organized by the teachers or the principals. You'd be in the middle of class, and I know this from kids I know, where all of a sudden, in the middle of class, a whole chunk just gets up and leaves, and they walk out, and you have no control over the classroom, unless, of course, it was going to be like, I don't know, a pro-life walkout or something.
Then,
maybe
then the hammer comes down.
Then they'll lock down all the doors.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about this, but a part of me felt like when the first incident at Cooper Union, remember, where the Jewish students locked themselves in. And in this incident, where this is a woman who went to a pro-Israel rally, and then she posted on social media supporting Israel, and she's the one being attacked by all these young kids who are now seemingly pro-Hamas.
Yeah, let's not lose track of the fact that she's hidden in a locked closet.
She's hidden in a locked closet.
This, because they want to hurt her.
So that's my question to you. A part of me felt like if I were her, I would just open the door and say, here I am. What are you going to do to me? Are they really going to hurt her? What do you think?
Oh, I think so.
Oh.
To me, this
I feel like so much of it is they're all worked up because they like to intimidate.
But things happen.
And then they get all
That's why
caught
I
up.
think that people who diminish January 6th, and there were parts of it that were very mundane, and there were people just walking through the Capitol, and there are people who are being punished too much for that. But there was a segment that wanted to lynch Mike Pence and was serious about it. I believe they were looking to hurt some people.
Right.
I believe these students would have been fine with hurting someone.
And then what? The question is, and then what?
I mean, she'd probably have. They'd
Would
do
people
some
feel bad about it?
Should they do some outreach after that, maybe?
And try to figure out what it is that you did that upset these kids. That would be it. It's downright Maoist.
Well, that's the chancellor.
Maoist.
The chancellor said he's calling for understanding, saying the war was, quote, a very visceral and emotional issue at Hillcrest, where about 30% of students are Muslims. they feel a kindred spirit with the folks of the Palestinian community.
And you have to understand how happy they were when they went on a killing spree.
I mean, that's a problem. That's
yeah.
a problem.
No, and I go back to, you think about the Cultural Revolution, you think about the students in the Red Brigades, and they just, with their little, red books and, uprising and revolting against the teachers.
And I think there is some of this that's opportunistic, right? It's like, oh, well, we can do mayhem because that's what we're doing right now. And maybe it's not necessarily ideological in the most horrible way possible. Still bad for a school.
They enjoy being a part of the bullying crowd.
And still bad for a school. Also, the way that the Cultural Revolution works is that if you don't join in, you become a marked man.
Yeah.
Right? And so a lot of these, there are probably students who feel compelled to be, hey, let's go to get the Jewish teacher. Mm-hmm. She's terrible.
Right.
Because if not, then what are they?
Do you remember the Black Lives?
Something called a Jew lover? Is that what they become?
Yeah. Do you remember the Black Lives Matter protests that were going through the cities, and this pathetic video going through, and it might have been Washington, D.C., where people are trying to dine outside. Because, it's COVID. You got to dine outside.
That was the freakiest.
And they would say people to force diners to stand up, interrupt your fancy meal, stand up and raise, the power
fist and
raise
speak
a fist
with us. Yeah.
And the image of this one white woman slowly raising her fist and having the sad look on her face of, I'm with you. Are you?
Yeah.
That's good.
There were several, by the way, who were genuinely brave, who just sat there and were like, no. I'm not doing this. Yeah. That's a bad way to do business.
Really
I think we should all be able to agree, but we don't agree because, by the way, did you see the Christmas tree lighting was interrupted?
Oh, the one in New York.
By pro-Palestinian,
yes, the one in New York.
Pro-Hamas groups as well. There were some swastikas in that crowd. I've seen the video. And as my friend Bethany Mandel joked, wow, you're really owning the Jews by messing up the Christmas tree lighting, guys. But it is again strange that 6 guys on a corner in like Fort Lauderdale, national news story.
That is
national news story.
But this
the disruption of the Christmas tree lighting with actual swastikas in the crowd.
Yeah.
No,
you'd have to go to Fox or Andy Go.
What do you make of Joe Biden's tweet that seems to signal a real shift in the White House's take on this? He says Hamas unleashed a terrorist attack because they fear nothing more than Israelis and Palestinians living side by side in peace. To continue down the path of terror, violence, killing, and war is to give Hamas what they seek. We can't do that. That seems like a significant change.
Okay. Depending on how you read it, I'm just going to say, when I saw the tweet, I understood at least the first part of what he's thinking. I understand how he's thinking and what he's thinking, which is, first of all, the Abraham Accords, which was an amazing thing. People tried to downplay it, saying, big deal. No, you get to fly from one country to the other.
It was, in the words of Biden, a BFD is what it was.
Oh, yeah, right. It was. That's right.
BFD.
For this. And then later on, they realized that they can actually capitalize on that and pull off an amazing foreign policy victory, which would be getting Israel and Saudi Arabia to have more normalized relations. And they were supposedly on the cusp of that. And then Iran realized, and Hamas realizes, and all of their allies realize, if this happens, their cause is going to be marginalized. So we need to do something to disrupt that and try to create a rift between Israel and its Arab neighbors, because how are they going to? They have to respond to this attack by killing Palestinians.
Right.
And then we can ruin everything, and then people will come to our side. In fact, Saudi Arabia obviously has been very quiet about this, watching what is going to happen behind the scenes. Other countries, as you know, have taken the side of the Iranians. So that's what I think what Biden was trying to say. The second part, though, is saying it suggests that this is the reason why, when in fact, of course, they've been planning this for years. Well, Hamas is, it's in their charter. They were always planning on killing Israelis and destroying Israel altogether. So I think the part that has our side worked up is that continuing down the path of war.
Yeah,
I think
killing and war.
Killing. I was thinking Hamas's war and killing, but no, you're right. That's
it encompasses both styles of. of warfare.
I'd like to know
here.
how long they spent working on that tweet, because a Trump tweet takes about a minute.
They're like,
There's not-
I got it.
There's not even a
We'll
time
t-
for
we'll
spell
tell
check.
them. We'll
Yeah.
tell them that the war benefits Hamas, and therefore that to be pro-Israel's self-defense would be to be pro-Hamas. You don't want that. I don't know. I don't think anyone over there is playing 4D chess. But this, to me, is concerning because it signals that Biden will be probably less strong in his assertions that Israel will do what it must do to get rid of Hamas entirely, because that's going to take longer. And I know that everyone's like, oh, there's been a momentary ceasefire, which, by the way, has just been broken in a very brutal way. I know it makes the people who call for ceasefire feel better that Israel is doing nothing to defend itself. But that is not a sustainable situation, because Hamas has said it will do October 7th over and over and over again. And by the way, a thing that I think we miss, Israel is a small country. It is the size of New Jersey. Yeah. It has not very many people in it. A huge a huge number of those people, a huge percentage of those people are in uniform right now. Yeah. Reserves and active, defending their country, which means the country is not operating with a regular economy or as a normal free country that is a great ally of ours right now. They cannot until this war is prosecuted and until Hamas is taken out. They can't go back to living. No. There's people evacuated into the middle of the country from everywhere.
There's also no option for them other than getting rid of Hamas. They cannot, the country cannot just have them in place and say, we'll have a ceasefire and we'll stretch it out because, we're going to extend it thanks to these reliable Qatari diplomats who are, of course, harboring Hamas leaders in their fancy, abodes. That can't be the case. Yet the rest of the world, of course, is like, well, extend it more. See, now it's more peace. Okay, they might have violated, but restrain yourselves. Just let it happen.
Let the peace happen.
Let
the peace happen,
But this
guys.
has happened before, where immediately after a terrorist attack, because, they can easily address a country and tell a country that has a foreign policy and a ministry to say, don't act on this.
Right.
But the terrorists, they can...
It's asymmetric warfare, right? They can do whatever they want. There's no
whatever they want.
Rules for me,
By the
but
way,
not for thee.
I do think New Jersey is huge. You can go from
New Jersey,
Cape May up to Morristown, almost 2.5.
I mean, it's
3 hours.
It's no
almost
wonder.
3 hours.
It's no wonder that everyone's so mad that this giant piece of land in the Middle East has been taken over by the Jewish people. Yeah. We're going to close with just this very depressing audio from the Oakland City Council. Oh boy. This is on Monday. They passed the City Council passed this is AP reporting, a carefully crafted resolution calling for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war after hours of hearing impassioned rhetoric about the deaths of thousands of civilians in Gaza. I feel like that might be mischaracterizing it. Let's play a bit of that audio.
There's not been beheadings of babies and rapings. Israel murdered their own people on October 7th.
Calling Hamas a terrorist organization is ridiculous, racist, and plays into genocidal propaganda that is flooding our media and that we should be doing everything possible to combat.
I support the right of Palestinians to resist occupation, including through Hamas, the armed wing of the unified Palestinian resistance.
As an Arab, asking with this context to condemn Hamas is very anti-Arab racist.
The notion that this was a massacre of Jews is a fabricated narrative. Many of those killed on October 7th,
Thank you, ma'am. Your time is up.
Including children, were killed by the IDF.
The people of Oakland, California, everyone. This is, by the way, a response by citizens to an attempt to add an anti-Hamas, a condemnation of Hamas to this resolution.
So, you know that part in Chuck Schumer's speech where he says a lot of these people take part in the rallies unknowingly? This does not help his case.
It doesn't feel unknowing.
No, and it makes you wonder at this point, if you were to ask them about the Holocaust, what they would think about that, or about 9/11. Where are they getting this information? How long have they held these views? Yeah. It's really disturbing.
It's
I don't know where you go from here.
I don't love it. Not to Oakland. That's the answer. Yeah. Okay. So
I never mind.
I got a Kamala clip. Let's a little palate cleanser with a Kamala clip. That's how bad the news is. I'm going to Kamala.
Thank goodness for Kamala.
For a refresher, and she is always comic relief. Yeah. This is a bit of 2024 news. Kamala was asked at the Deal Book Summit, hosted by the New York Times, about Biden's sort of fitness for the trail and his age, and which is, of course, something that in polling a lot of people and many Democrats have concerns about. Here we go.
To the point, because it is a point that has been made. First of all, I would say that age is more than a chronological fact. I spent a whole lot of time with our president, be it in the Oval Office or the Situation Room and in other places. And I can tell you, as I just mentioned, not only is he absolutely authoritative in rooms around the globe, but in the Oval Office, meeting with members of Congress, meeting with leaders in industry, meeting with community leaders, I will tell you that he is in front of, often, everyone in the room in terms of thinking about how we can resolve issues, negotiate in a way that is about concession where necessary, but for the sake of accomplishment and actual work.
You can't keep up with the guy.
She has, you know what she has? She has this amazing ability to stretch out a point into a paragraph, and she has.
I think the word ability might be a little generous, but yes.
And she, you add to that the vocal fry, a little bit of this going on, and like, oh, this sounds interesting. She reminds me of, if you've ever seen Best in Show, Jennifer Coolidge, and she's married to the 90-year-old because for the money, and she's trying to explain that they actually have a lot in common, and she says, we both like talking and not talking. We like soup, and it's just that's all it is, and that was her.
Yeah. Well, she's eloquent as always. I also wanted to add to the 2024 news.
She's vice president of the United States.
She's vice president. Which is why, by the way, by the time this runs, Newsom and DeSantis will have faced off on Fox News, which I'm looking forward to, and we'll talk about that later this week or at our next show. But that's the reason that Newsom is out there. Mm-hmm. Because should something happen, he wants to be known as a very capable surrogate, but not really a surrogate, as a step-in guy. And look, he's a slick salesman guy who's full of it, but he's better than this. Yeah, that is for sure. Yeah. I wanted to add to the 2024 mix this little tidbit from Donald J. Trump, former president of the United States. Mark Fisher, who was in some way related to I believe the Rhode Island Black Lives Matter movement, perhaps a co-founder.
Not the Washington Post's longtime writer, Mark Fisher.
He came out on Fox News and said that he would support Donald Trump. Due to his belief that the African-American community was being treated with getting better results under President Trump. True. Here's Trump on the matter. Now, BLM has said, no, that guy has nothing to do with us. So there's some dispute about this. Trump says, spoke with Mark Fisher yesterday, a great guy. Very honored to have his and BLM's support. And then goes on to say, I've done more for black people than any other president. Lincoln, ? Including.
No, he didn't say Lincoln, ? Every now and then, because you don't hear from him for a long time and you don't see him in the media and they're not mentioning this, you're like, I don't know, maybe, you tend to remember only the good times, as they say. Mm-hmm. And then you get
now,
these
to
reminders.
be fair, he put a question mark. Lincoln, ? Including a 10-year funding for historically black colleges and universities where they had none, opportunity zones, criminal justice reform, and much more. Thank you to Mark. This follows the old rule about if there's a question mark on your headline,
the answer is no. The answer is no.
No, you haven't done more than President Lincoln. So, point being, nothing matters because no one in his coalition suddenly will care whether he says he's honored to have BLM's support.
Yeah.
Any other candidate pulls that into the candidacy.
Yeah, no, him.
Honored to have BLM's support, said Nikki Haley. That ain't happening.
No, he knows what he's doing. I was going to say he knows what he's doing, but maybe I'm wondering if the intentional troll. It reminds me.
This is unknowing. No,
it reminds me of how he referred to Frederick Douglass as Freddie Douglass. Freddie Douglass, who I worked with in Queens. Yeah, good guy, Freddie Douglass.
No, this is yet again. First of all, nobody's going to care, even though arguably they should, because they would hold any other candidate to that standard. It's also about how his values are wholly transactional.
Oh, sure.
As long as this guy says he's cool, he thinks that guy's cool.
Yeah.
And whatever organization he came from is cool.
He finds it very difficult to condemn people who like him. And
yes.
that's where he's coming from. So it's like, the great challenge with Ronald Reagan and the John Birch Society and having to condemn them, which he
Right.
did, Trump would be like, oh, hold on now, not everybody that's.
All right. We're going to do a little uncancelled.
Oh,
I got
okay,
some
good.
fake racism to debunk. You ready for this one?
Anything for the clicks. Go
Okay.
ahead.
A child was featured on the telecast for the Kansas City Chiefs versus Las Vegas Raiders. I forget they're Las Vegas now. Raiders.
Yes. Not in
game.
Oakland.
Yeah, not in Oakland. They left Oakland. They saw this coming,
They left
guys.
it at the right time.
There's a kid in the stands. He's wearing a headdress, a very elaborate Native American headdress, and his face is painted. Now, the picture that Deadspin, which is the Gawker-affiliated sports site, chooses is a picture of the kid from the side on the telecast where it looks like his face is black with the headdress. And the headline is, the NFL needs to speak out against the Kansas City Chiefs fan in blackface, native headdress. Now, if you watch the game, you will see this child turn to camera, and the other side of his face is red. He's not in blackface.
As in the Kansas City Chiefs color
Yes,
red.
he is in red and black on either side of his face. It is obviously not what this reporter, Karen Phillips.
I would say you could
Karan Phillips.
I would say the other thing that you might notice is that there were not riots at Arrowhead Stadium against this kid, and they had to chase the kid out.
Yeah. So this is the original lead on this. It takes a lot to disrespect two groups of people once. By the way, this kid is under 10. But on Sunday afternoon in Las Vegas, a Kansas City Chiefs fan found a way to hate black people and Native Americans at the same time. It was as if John Gruden's emails had come to life. The image of a Chiefs fan in blackface wearing a native headdress during a road game leads to so many unanswered questions.
A fan? Was he like a 40-year-old dude?
No, just a kid, just a child. Why did the cameraman give this fan attention? Why did the producer allow that camera angle to be aired at all? Is that a fan? Is that fan a kid, teenager, or a young adult? I mean, he's very obviously very young. Despite their age, who taught that person what they were? This is sports reporting, apparently. Who taught that person that this was
is
appropriate?
why I want to read about sports.
Yeah. So it turns out, of course, one, it's not blackface. Two, I do enjoy this twist.
Yes.
He's Native American.
Yes, he is.
He's Native American.
The Chumash tribe of Santa Ynez, which is in California.
Yeah, so his family's affiliated specifically with a tribe, which is a great twist of fate for the identity-obsessed people who are coming at him. His mother also went to Facebook and was like, dude, first of all, he's a kid. Second of all, he's not in blackface. Third of all, he's Native American.
Right. I mean, you can find his grandfather on the web, and he's,
Why are we canceling a kid who's a football fan? I mean, this is just wild.
Do you think we've reached
and
the
he's
point...
the good guy. This guy thinks he's the good guy.
Oh, yeah, no. And this guy's a Pulitzer finalist.
Oh.
Do you think, at least according to his Twitter
is
handle,
so awesome.
Do
full
you
of
think
awesome people.
This is the point where the pendulum starts to swing back, or no? Because we've reached the point of madness here, and I'm glad that there's pushback on social media against him and against Deadspin.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much coverage otherwise this is getting, because this is a ridiculous piece, and it needs to be pushed back, not just by us or Fox or wherever.
No,
but
I think this one got a lot of pushback, and I'm glad. And I would say, again,
it's outrageous.
Formerly not that litigious a person,
Mm-hmm.
Sue whoever you can.
Go Covington
for,
Catholic.
For defaming this kid.
Yeah.
Sue who you need
Get
to
a
sue.
settlement.
And then donate that settlement to the Native American tribe.
Now, you mentioned he had a response already. The Quran, the journalist.
Oh, yes.
Where he said something to the effect of just, he doubled down.
He doubled down when he was attacked. He said, sure, even if it's not blackface, he shouldn't be wearing the headdress.
Right, as if you think it's the own that it's not, or whatever, to that effect, and you were the same white people who, celebrate on Cinco de Mayo and the whole thing. So
we hate, white people who hate Mexicans but celebrate Cinco de Mayo or something.
Will these people ever just say, well, I got that wrong, sorry? No, I don't think ever. We've reached the point.
That's not where the power comes from.
No, you think about the writer for Rolling Stones who accused the fraternity of rape. It was they interviewed this woman who had a fake rape claim or the Duke lacrosse story. These people just go on.
The Russia hoax, it was like only 4 years of nonsense.
Yeah. So in this particular case, I don't. it's amazing. We shouldn't be surprised. They're not going to ever say, well, you know what, you're right. We went a little too far, because they actually will believe this to the end. I don't know what Deadspin does with this writer, but I'm not going to hold my breath either.
Well, wasn't Gawker already sued out of existence once?
Yes, they were.
All right, proceed.
Yeah.
Proceed.
Yeah.
You know who did back off and say he was, at the very least, had bad judgment about a tweet recently?
Oh,
excuse me, a post on X.
A post. Oh,
Elon Musk.
Ah.
I watched a bit of his interview at the DealBook Summit with the journalist. What's his name? Sorkin is his last name. Andrew Ross Sorkin. With Andrew Ross Sorkin.
Thank you.
It's a long interview. Musk, for his faults, is an interesting person, and it's an interesting listen. There's one part that we're going to play that's getting a lot of attention, but he did in part of that discuss how his recent comment, which we talked about, where he affirmed a sort of nasty sounding, anti-Semitic sounding theory about how the Jewish community aligns with woke folks, and therefore this anti-Semitism shouldn't be surprising to them. When he affirmed that online, he said that was one of his more foolish, perhaps the most foolish thing he had ever tweeted. And when it comes down to it, he thinks that the overall evidence will show not only that he's not an anti-Semite, but that he's philo-Semitic. And but the part that got all the press, anyway, it was an interesting conversation. The part that got all the press was this audio of him talking about how he deals with and thinks about advertisers boycotting X.
Apology tour, if you will. That this had been said online. There was all of the criticism. There was advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go fuck yourself.
But
go yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
Well, let me ask you then.
That's how I feel. Don't advertise.
How do you think then about?
So that Bob is for Bob Iger of
Disney.
Of Disney. Look, there's Adam Carolla has a formulation where he says there's different kinds of money. There's FU money, which is a big deal. It's a lot of money. And then there's F me money, which means you can screw yourself because you have so much money that you have the resources to back that up. That's what's going. This is Elon Musk has F me money. He has the money to drop on this, and he has the money to say to advertisers, "Oh, you're going to boycott me with money, or you're going to blackmail me with money." Now, is this wise business? I would argue, no. But here's the thing: there is something to this energy, because you cannot lay down for every bully if you are attempting to run a fairly free forum on which people can express
and worry about
themselves
what
honestly.
you can say, what you can't say, walking on eggshells every single time. But I'll tell you, as a user of X, I will, I'll feel very upset if I get fewer ads. Just hate for that to happen.
I think your mileage may vary on Elon as the proprietor of X. I think basically all his missteps are worth it for the implementation of community notes.
Yes,
which I think is extremely valuable
and amusing. I am gonna say I would be very upset if I don't get any more of the "don't put this in your coffee" ads, which we know from the show. It's very disturbing and yet mysterious. I don't know what it is because I drink my coffee black.
Because you can't click
I don't know
through. You can't spend all that time
I don't
clicking
know.
through.
It's like something out of Alien.
So his argument was, look, I'm going to put it to the people, and if these boycotts go on forever, they'll kill the platform, and if they want to kill the platform, then they'll have to answer for that. And Sorkin said, but wouldn't that partly be on you, because they're saying they don't feel comfortable, and he said, well, it'll just be up to the public to decide. Now, I'm not sure it's going to come to that, because I think a lot of very rich and powerful people want Twitter to continue to exist because they're addicted to it.
It's a love-hate. It's a love-hate relation.
They're addicted to it. Yeah. But I do enjoy the GFY energy on some of this. You know who's also good at doing this is Dana White of the UFC.
Okay.
That's right. When advertisers say to the UFC that they're nervous about something, he will just say "F you."
Yeah.
And if you lay down markers like that, you don't get pushed around as much because you're capable of standing up for yourself. I would argue that many of these college administrators and college presidents, including the president of Brown University, could use just a tiny bit of that energy with their students because they have been taught to bend the knee at any request from a certain segment of students, and they should stop being bullied.
No, this is you see what the result is.
Yeah, because you embolden bullies when you do that. And Musk is not interested in emboldening bullies in that sense. There are others who would argue that some of the things on the site reward too many bullies.
Yeah.
And that's like the give and take of a social media site. But again, community notes plus GFY. This week I'm okay with Elon Musk.
Okay. All right.
What else we got?
Did you want to talk about Black Friday?
Sure, let's talk about Black Friday. Apparently Black Friday went really well in America. Cyber Monday in particular hit huge records, which is, I'm all for that because I'm a lazy Black Friday person.
Yeah, I'm not going to any place. My uncle and my cousin used to do that, and they'd get there at midnight or someplace.
No.
I'm not doing that.
I'm not busting any doors.
Or Thanksgiving night. I'm not busting any doors and getting in a fight and getting that on TV. Neil Augenstein of WTOP, who I love, he was at Tyson's Corner Mall in Virginia at like between 5 and 6 a.m. and a line had already formed outside for Lululemon.
For Lululemon ladies.
6 a.m.
Well, what were the prices?
That one must have been the prices were so good it was like 2019. That's how good they were.
No, prices were so good you could get 2 pairs of leggings for $350 at Lulu. I do want to contrast. Look, there are still things in America that we do well.
Mm-hmm.
And spending money on Black Friday is one of them.
Yeah.
Now,
it's good for the
how much
economy.
are we putting that on the credit card? I don't know. But just as contrast, France.
Mm-hmm.
A little story out of France. The French government has launched a campaign encouraging people not to buy new clothes in Black Friday sales. The advertisement shows a man asking for advice in a shop before an assistant tells him not to buy anything to help the planet and his finances.
How is it helping the planet?
The Minister for Ecological Transition, responsible for promoting sustainability, Christophe Béchu, is behind the campaign. But the message has been criticized by other government departments, like the ones that would like a thriving economy. Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire called it ill-conceived and said it would harm honest businesses. France. Get it together. By the way,
It's a general attitude.
The one thing you're going to tell the French not to buy is fashion.
Right.
Maybe
Right.
pick Big Macs or something. I don't know.
It's this general attitude of too much capitalism is a bad thing, right? And I get it here. I get it. We have this argument here in the United States, but they really take it seriously in Europe. When I lived in
to their detriment.
To their detriment. When I lived in Germany and Austria, when I lived in Austria for a whole year, Sundays everything is closed.
Right.
So a lot of the stores. And not just retail.
It's so funny because they're so much more secular than we are.
No, wait, that's the whole thing. That's what's crazy because, the whole idea is it's going to be a family day. You go to church, spend time with your family. And I talk to, a lot of, Europeans, what they do on Sundays. Oh, we just watch football. That's all. The whole day of watching football, but you can't go anywhere else because everywhere else is closed. So a lot of the retail stores are closed. But not only that, supermarkets are closed. Pharmacies are closed.
Yeah.
I remember.
Not us. We shop on the Sabbath.
That is insane.
That's
and I'll
what
tell you,
we do.
A funny thing, when I was there, and this was in the 90s, so this is ancient history, but the one big store that was open was the Virgin Megastore.
Okay.
And the authorities in Vienna said...
Like the place that you went to physically buy music at one point? Yeah, okay.
Buy my CDs. And you can even do a sample. You can listen to the music.
I remember that, man. It's good times.
So cool. They were warned by Viennese authorities or state authorities, you insist to be open on a Sunday and it's against law, we will fine you. And Richard Branson, I guess that's the FU money.
That's the FU money.
Fine.
Come
go ahead,
at
fine
me.
And it was packed.
I love it. I love that.
So also, by the way,
that's some civil disobedience I can get behind.
That is, I did ask, I remember at the time, well, if the supermarkets and pharmacies are closed, like suppose you need medication, where do you go? Like suppose I need Tylenol or aspirin.
Right.
They said go to the train station.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Trains do run on time. I've heard that. Okay. One last thing.
Yeah.
I got to go
What
after
do you
your
got?
home state here.
I know. This is terrible.
Governor Phil Murphy has
surprising.
conditionally vetoed a bill that would have eased restrictions on New Jersey breweries, distilleries, and wineries.
Why would you want to do that?
Some brewery owners told CBS New York on Tuesday the bill would have helped boost business. Leopold Sawadogo's beers at Montclair Brewery, which he owns with his wife, tell a story. Black is Beautiful, which is a new brew he has, is, I can say, a protest beer. Again, this is protest I can get behind. I grew up watching my mother make beer. That's why it got me interested in making beer. But he said strict liquor laws in New Jersey are pushing business owners like him out. The brewery's co-owners say Governor Murphy's conditional veto of this bill that would have allowed breweries to hold unlimited events, serve food, and collaborate with vendors is shocking. This is what he won't allow. Events, serving food, collaborating with vendors.
Yeah.
What? That does sound like danger to me.
You know, why would you want people to have a good time? And a lot of these breweries suddenly had to be very careful about how much food you could serve.
Right, of
and now
course.
they're saying you can't even have like a food truck, I think is what they're saying.
And of course, a liquor license is very valuable.
Oh, it sure
and
is.
if you mess around
Yeah.
and you get sideways of something very bad for you, so I'm sure they play it quite safe.
Yeah.
And this all just seems like very reasonable stuff that could happen.
In Virginia, on the other hand, you can go to like Port City Brewery in Alexandria. They got the food truck. There's music. Everybody's having a great time. I've never seen things get out of control over there.
Yeah.
And it's a win-win for everybody.
I mean, I'm not sure if this is an argument for or against, but they're arguing because of proximity. They do it in Philly. So these trucks will go to Philly outside a brewery.
Yeah.
And they park on the parking lot and they do service to their customers and everybody wins.
Yeah.
But we can't have that much freedom in New Jersey.
No, well, that's not surprising with New Jersey, with very high taxes, and Phil Murphy's, of course, terrible with the schools. And he made, I believe, a surprise trip to Ukraine because he's actually thinking somebody in New York City, when I was in there, who knew Phil Murphy, of course, who came from Goldman Sachs fame, right? He's like a billionaire.
Right.
He is thinking of running for president.
Oh, really?
Not in 2024, but certainly 2028, laying the groundwork now because he's done such an amazing job in the Garden State.
Yeah, it's great.
That's it. When I go back
doing
to
fantastic.
Cape May next summer, I'm going to go to Cape May Brewing to support them. And hopefully they'll be serving food.
That's the only reason. This is just a legislative push that you're doing.
Strictly for legislative
Every time
push.
you take a swig, legislative push.
Or there's another place called Naughty Spirits. Naughty, but it's more like nautical.
Doing some civic
nautical.
engagement.
It's nautical. And I guess you have to brown bag your lunch because there's not going to be any food.
It's just wild. You can't eat food at the brewery. Sorry. And the breweries are limited to the number of events because if they have too many parties, good Lord.
Don't want that to happen.
All right.
That wraps up this episode of Getting Hammered. Remember, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at Victorina Mattis.
I am at MK Hammer on Twitter, at MK Hammer Time on Instagram. You can follow the show at Getting Hammered Podcast on Instagram or YouTube, and you should. And also, I would like to program note for next week that the Free Beacon is a partner in the next presidential debate, which is taking place in Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Very exciting.
A place I am not at all interested in as a Georgia fan.
All right.
Taking place in Tuscaloosa, and the Beacon's own Eliana Johnson will be one of the moderators alongside Megyn Kelly and Elizabeth Vargas of News Nation, who is airing this debate. So check that out, and we will talk about it next week. All right. Thanks for being here. Thanks for getting hammered responsibly. This has been a Nebulous Media Podcast.